I thought I'd finally escaped my controlling family when I got into college 3 hours away. My name is Maya, I'm 22, and for the first time in my life, I was about to live on my own terms. Or so I thought. The apartment was perfect, a cozy two-bedroom near campus with hardwood floors and big windows that let in the morning sun. I'd been searching for months, saving every penny from my part-time job at the campus library. When I finally found it, I knew this was my chance at real freedom. My roommate was supposed to be Jessica, a girl from my psychology class. We'd bonded over late-night study sessions and complaints about our overbearing families. She seemed responsible, mature, someone I could trust. We'd agreed to split everything 50-50, rent, utilities, the security deposit, everything. I was so excited when we scheduled the lease signing for that Saturday morning in October. But the night before, something felt off. Jessica had been acting strange all week, avoiding my texts, giving vague responses when I asked about her half of the deposit. I'd already transferred my share to the landlord's account, $1,800, which was basically my entire savings. Jessica kept saying she'd bring cash to the signing. Red flags were waving, but I ignored them. I wanted this apartment so badly, wanted my independence so desperately, that I convinced myself everything would be fine. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. I got to the landlord's office 15 minutes early, my stomach churning with anxiety. The landlord, Mr. Chin, was a kind older man in his 60s with reading glasses and a patient smile. He had all the paperwork laid out on his desk, 2 copies of everything, pens ready. I sat there watching the clock, texting Jessica every 5 minutes. No response. 10 minutes past our appointment time. Then 20. Then 30. Finally, 45 minutes late, Jessica walked in. But she wasn't alone. Behind her was someone I never expected to see, my older brother, Derek. My heart dropped into my stomach. Derek was 28, a real estate agent, and had been my mother's spy my entire life. Whatever independence I'd tried to claim, Derek had always found a way to sabotage it. In high school, he told my parents about every party I wanted to attend, every friend he deemed unsuitable, every decision he thought was wrong. And here he was in the landlord's office when I was supposed to be signing my first solo lease. Jessica wouldn't meet my eyes. She stood there fidgeting with her purse strap while Derek smiled at me with that condescending expression I knew so well. Mr. Chin looked between us, clearly confused about who this additional person was and why the atmosphere had suddenly turned ice cold. "Maya, we need to talk," Derek said, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Jessica called me last night. She's worried about you rushing into this." I felt rage building in my chest. "Jessica called you? Why would you call my brother?" Jessica finally spoke, her voice small and guilty. "I just thought. I mean, your family should know where you're living," and Derek said. "Derek said what?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. "What did he tell you?" Derek stepped forward, pulling out his phone. "I told her the truth, Maya. That you're not financially stable enough for this. That you're making an impulsive decision. That Mom and Dad are worried sick about you living alone." Mr. Chin cleared his throat gently. "I'm sorry, but we have an appointment scheduled. Are we proceeding with the lease signing or not?" "We're not," Derek announced, as if he had any authority in this situation. "Jessica's backing out, which means Maya can't afford this place alone. It's for the best, really. Maya, you can move back home, save more money, be responsible for once." The words hit me like physical blows. Move back home. Back to my mother's constant criticism, my father's disappointed silences, Derek's controlling interference in every aspect of my life. Back to being treated like I was incapable of making my own decisions. I looked at Jessica, who was staring at the floor, and I realized she'd never intended to sign this lease. Derek had gotten to her, probably offered her some excuse or painted me as irresponsible, and she'd crumbled. "I can afford it alone," I said, my voice shaking but determined. "I'll take the whole apartment myself." Derek laughed. actually laughed. With what money, Maya? You make barely above minimum wage. You can't cover $3,600 a month in rent plus utilities. Stop being delusional. Mr. Chen looked at me with sympathy. The young lady does make a point about the finances. The lease requires proof of income at 3 times the monthly rent. I'm sorry, but unless you have a cosigner or can prove that income level. She doesn't, Derek interrupted. That's why she needed a roommate in the first place. Come on, Maya, let's go. Stop embarrassing yourself. Something inside me snapped. I was so tired of being controlled, tired of having my decisions questioned, tired of my family treating me like I was incompetent. I turned to Mr. Chen, my hands trembling. What if I can prove I have the funds? Not income, but actual money to cover the rent. Mr. Chen adjusted his glasses. Well, some landlords will accept proof of substantial savings as an alternative. If you could show, say, a year's worth of rent in a bank account, I might be willing to work with you. But that would be $43,000, I finished. Rent plus a conservative estimate for utilities. Derek rolled his eyes. Maya, you don't have $43,000. Stop this fantasy and let's go. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway, she does. We all turned. Standing there was my grandmother, my dad's mother, Eleanor. She was 76 years old, barely 5 feet tall, with silver hair and the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen. She walked in with her cane, moving slowly but with absolute purpose. In her other hand, she carried a manila folder. Grandma Eleanor? I whispered, completely shocked. What are you doing here? Jessica isn't a very good secret keeper, Eleanor said, settling into a chair Mr. Chen quickly offered her. She called your brother called your mother called me thinking I'd help talk sense into you. Instead, I decided to come see what all the fuss was about. Derek's confident expression faltered. Mom, this doesn't concern you. Maya's made an irresponsible decision and… Be quiet, Derek, Eleanor said sharply. Adults are talking. She turned to Mr. Chen and placed the manila folder on his desk. Mr. Chen, I'm Eleanor Hartley, Maya's grandmother. Inside this folder, you'll find a bank statement showing that Maya has a trust fund in her name with a current balance of $82,417. You'll also find the documents showing that she gains full control of this fund upon turning 22, which happened 3 weeks ago. And you'll find a letter from my attorney confirming that these funds are legally hers, free and clear, no restrictions. The office went completely silent. I stared at my grandmother, my mind reeling. What trust fund? Nobody told me about any trust fund. Eleanor's expression softened when she looked at me. I know, sweetheart. I set it up when you were born. Your grandfather, and I wanted to make sure you had options when you grew up, real choices, not just the path your parents laid out for you. I've been adding to it over the years, birthdays, holidays, my own savings. I kept it quiet because I knew your mother would try to control it, use it as leverage. The terms were simple. The money becomes yours at 22, and only you can access it. Derek's face had gone pale. That's not. You can't just. I absolutely can, Eleanor said firmly. It's my money, and I chose to give it to my granddaughter. Not to your mother to manage, not for you to have input on, directly to Maya. She looked at Mr. Chen. Will that be sufficient proof of funds? Mr. Chen was carefully reviewing the documents, his expression professional, but I could see surprise in his eyes. Yes, this is more than sufficient. Miss Hartley, if you'd like to proceed with the lease as a single tenant, I'd be happy to accommodate that. I couldn't breathe. $82,000. A trust fund. Freedom, real freedom, sitting right there in legal documents on the desk. I looked at my grandmother, tears building in my eyes. Grandma, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, she interrupted gently. First, let's finish this lease signing. Then we'll talk. Derek found his voice again, and it came out angry and desperate. This is manipulation. Mom, you're enabling her worst impulses. Maya isn't ready to live alone. She needs family support. She needs her family to stop suffocating her, Eleanor snapped. Do you know what your mother did last week, Derek? She called the college registrar's office pretending to be Maya, trying to access her grades and class schedule. Do you know what you did last month? You contacted Maya's previous landlord from her summer sublet and told them she was unreliable, which cost her that housing opportunity. This family has been sabotaging this girl's independence for years, and I'm done watching it happen. My hands were shaking as everything clicked into place. The summer apartment that mysteriously fell through. The internship I didn't get because someone called and said I was flaky. The scholarship committee that received an anonymous letter questioning my maturity. All those setbacks, all those closed doors, my family had been behind them, actively working to keep me dependent, to keep me under their control. Jessica had backed toward the door, clearly wanting to escape. I turned to her, my voice cold. You were part of this from the beginning, weren't you? You never intended to be my roommate. Derek got to you weeks ago. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He said it was for your own good. That your family was worried. He seemed so concerned, and I just thought, I'm sorry, Maya. I really am. Get out, I said quietly. Just leave. Jessica practically ran from the office. Derek, however, wasn't done fighting. He turned to Eleanor, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Mom, please think about what you're doing. Maya isn't responsible enough for this kind of money. She'll waste it, make bad decisions. We're trying to protect her. Protect her? Eleanor's voice could have cut glass. You're trying to control her. There's a difference. You and your mother have convinced yourselves that your interference is love, but it's not. It's fear. You're afraid that if Maya becomes independent, if she builds a life outside your control, you'll lose your power over her. Well, guess what? You already have. She opened her purse and pulled out another document. This is a restraining order, Derek. Not a legal one, not yet, but consider it a warning. If you contact any of Maya's potential employers, landlords, schools, or opportunities again, if you interfere in her life in any way, I will use every resource. I have to make your life very difficult. I may be old, but I still have excellent lawyers and a very long memory. Derek's face went red with anger and humiliation. He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine fear. He was losing control, and he knew it. You're making a huge mistake, he said, but his voice had lost its authority. Mom and Dad are going to hear about this. I'm counting on it, Eleanor said calmly. Now leave. Maya has paperwork to sign. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. The silence that followed felt heavy and strange. Mr. Chin cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, that was intense. Should we proceed? I looked at my grandmother, still trying to process everything. You did all this for me? The trust fund, the documents, coming here today. Eleanor reached over and took my hand. Her skin was thin and soft, her grip surprisingly strong. Maya, sweetheart, I did this because I see who you are. Your mother sees her fears. Your father sees his disappointments. Derek sees a threat to the family dynamic he's comfortable with. But I see a smart, capable young woman who deserves the chance to build her own life. Yes, you'll make mistakes. Everyone does. But they'll be your mistakes, and you'll learn from them. That's what growing up is supposed to be. Tears were streaming down my face now. But $82,000, that's your savings, your security. My security is knowing that I helped someone I love become free, she interrupted. Money sitting in a bank does nothing. Money that gives you choices, that lets you pursue education or travel or whatever dreams you have, that's money well spent. Besides, your grandfather and I wanted this. We talked about it before he passed. He'd be proud of you, Maya. So proud. I couldn't speak anymore. I just held her hand and cried while Mr. Chin politely pretended to organize his paperwork. When I finally composed myself, I looked at the lease documents spread across the desk. My name at the top. Just my name. No cosigner needed. No roommate. Just me, making my own choice. I'd like to sign now, I said, my voice steady. The next 20 minutes were a blur of signatures and initials. Mr. Chen explained each section, but I was so overwhelmed I barely heard him. Eleanor sat beside me the whole time, her presence calm and solid. When it was done, Mr. Chen handed me a set of keys. "Congratulations, Miss Hartley," he said warmly. "Welcome to your new home." I held those keys like they were made of gold. They felt heavy and real and absolutely perfect. Eleanor smiled at me, her eyes soft. "Now, let's go see this apartment of yours." We walked over together, Eleanor moving slowly with her cane while I practically floated beside her. The apartment looked even better than it had during the viewing. Empty rooms full of possibility. Space that was mine, truly mine. I stood in the middle of the living room and just spun around, taking it all in. "Thank you," I whispered. "Grandma, thank you so much." Eleanor settled onto the windowsill, looking tired but happy. "You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. But you do need to listen. That money is yours, but it's not infinite. 82,000 sounds like a lot, but it can disappear quickly if you're not careful. You need to budget, to plan, to think about your future. This apartment is a good start, but what comes next?" I sat down beside her. "I want to finish my degree. I want to eventually work in social services, helping other people who feel trapped like I did. And I want to prove that I can do this, that I'm not the irresponsible mess my family thinks I am." "You're not a mess," Eleanor said firmly. "You're 22 years old, figuring things out, exactly as you should be. Your mother was a controlling teenager who became a controlling adult. Derek learned that behavior from her. They genuinely believe they're helping, which makes it worse because they can't see the damage they're doing. But that's not your burden to carry anymore. You set your boundaries, you build your life, and if they can't respect that, you limit their access to you." Over the next few days, my phone exploded with messages. My mother called 17 times the first day alone, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to guilt-tripping. My father sent a long email about family loyalty and respect. Derek texted threats about how I was tearing the family apart. But I didn't respond to any of them. Eleanor had advised me to document everything but not engage, and that's exactly what I did. Meanwhile, I threw myself into making the apartment my own. I bought second-hand furniture, hung curtains, arranged my books on shelves. Every small decision felt monumental. Choosing a coffee maker, picking out dish towels, deciding where to put my desk. These were choices nobody could override, changes nobody could criticize. It was intoxicating. A week after signing the lease, Eleanor came over for dinner. I'd cooked pasta with vegetables, nothing fancy but made with care. We ate together in my tiny dining area, and she told me stories about my grandfather, about her own struggles with my mother's controlling nature over the years, about why she'd stayed quiet about the trust fund until now. "Your mother is my daughter, and I love her," Eleanor said. "But I don't like who she's become. After your grandfather died, she became obsessed with control. I think she's terrified of loss, of change, of anything she can't manage perfectly. She projected all that fear onto you. And Derek, well, he never learned to separate himself from her expectations." That night, after Eleanor left, I sat in my apartment and made a list. Not a to-do list or a budget, though I needed both. This was a list of truths, things I knew for certain about my life, facts my family couldn't distort or rewrite. My age, my education, my goals, my values. Seeing them written down made them feel more real, more solid. I was reclaiming my own narrative. 3 weeks later, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. I saw her through the peephole, standing in the hallway looking older and smaller than I remembered. I didn't open the door. Instead, I spoke through it, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Mom, I'm not ready to talk to you yet." "Maya, please," her voice cracked. "I'm your mother. We need to discuss this situation. You can't just cut us out of your life over a disagreement." "This isn't a disagreement," I said. "This is me setting boundaries you've never respected. I need space and time. When I'm ready to talk, I'll reach out. But showing up here unannounced isn't helping your case. Your grandmother has poisoned you against me, she said, anger seeping into her voice. She's always interfered, always undermined my parenting. That money should have been managed by me, invested properly, not just handed over to a college kid who'll waste it. Goodbye, Mom, I said, and walked away from the door. I heard her knock a few more times, heard her voice raising as she called my name, but I turned on music and drowned her out. An hour later, she was gone. That evening, Eleanor called me. Your mother came to my house. We had words. Rather loud words. She's threatening to contest the trust fund. My heart sank. Can she do that? She can try, Eleanor said. But she won't win. The trust was established legally, with clear terms. My attorney assures me it's airtight. She's just lashing out because she's lost control. Stand firm, Maya. This will pass. It took 2 months, but Eleanor was right. My mother's attorney apparently looked at the trust documents and advised her that a legal challenge would be expensive and doomed to fail. Slowly, the angry messages tapered off. Derek stopped texting. My father sent one final email saying he hoped I'd eventually understand how much they loved me, and then silence. The silence was strange at first. I'd spent 22 years surrounded by my family's constant input, their opinions and demands and interference. Having none of that felt like missing a limb, painful and disorienting even though the limb had been diseased. But gradually, the silence became peaceful. I filled it with my own voice, my own choices, my own life. I cut my hours at the library and focused more on my studies. My grades improved dramatically without the constant stress of family drama. I made new friends, real friends who didn't report back to anyone. I started seeing a campus therapist who helped me understand the dynamics I'd grown up with, helped me process the layers of control and manipulation I'd endured. 6 months after signing the lease, Eleanor visited again. She looked frilier than before, leaning heavily on her cane, but her eyes were bright. I showed her around the apartment, photos on the walls, plants on the windowsills, my textbooks stacked on the coffee table. She nodded approvingly at everything. I'm proud of you, she said finally. You took the chance I gave you, and you've built something real. That's not easy, especially with everything your family put you through. I couldn't have done it without you, I said honestly. The money, yes, but more than that. Having one person who believed I could do this made all the difference. A year has passed since that day in the landlord's office. I'm 23 now, still in my apartment, thriving in ways I never thought possible. I finished my degree with honors and started a graduate program in social work. My relationship with my family remains complicated. My mother and I have started speaking again, but only under strict boundaries. Derek sent me an apology text 6 months ago, saying he'd started therapy. My father and I video chat occasionally. Eleanor is my anchor. We have dinner every Sunday, and she continues to be the voice of wisdom and support I needed my whole life. Last week, I started volunteering at a nonprofit that helps young adults transitioning out of controlling family situations. I share my story carefully, focusing on resources and strategies for building independence. Freedom, I've learned, isn't just about money or physical distance from controlling people. It's about reclaiming your narrative, setting boundaries, and having someone believe in your capability to build your own life. Eleanor gave me all of that. She handed me something far more valuable than a lease or a trust fund. She handed me permission to become myself. And it all started in that landlord's office, when I thought I'd lost everything, when my supposed roommate refused to help, when my brother tried one last time to control my life. That's when my grandmother walked through the door and handed me not just documents, but my future. My real future. The one I get to write myself.